Hi, Dr. Melissa Robinson-Winemiller here again for another episode of The Empathic Leader. And I appreciate you all being here and sticking with us. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Marsha Vanwynsberghe, and I adore her. I really think she is my sister from another mister, because every time I talk to her, I'm like, are you in my head? Have you been in my back pocket this whole time and I didn't know it? So just by means of an introduction, no introduction I do is going to do this woman justice, but she is a storyteller, trainer, coach, author, NLP practitioner, speaker, and podcaster. But the thing that's important with Marsha is she doesn't do this because this is what she decided to do. She did this because of stuff that happened in her life and feeling that she had a message she had to get out there. She went through having 2 teens dealing with substance abuse and everything that goes along with that. But she had to battle her own feelings of frustration and isolation and overwhelming fatigue. And how many of us have also had to do that in different situations, but we understand exactly where she's coming from. Her book, When She Stopped Asking Why, is phenomenal, and I would highly recommend it if you hadn't read it. One little tidbit I picked up about her that I didn't know is that she is also a kinesiology and personal trainer, which is something else we have in common that we haven't even talked about. But I'm really excited. Her message is to release blame, shame, and guilt. She is an aficionado of Brene Brown, just like I am. And I can't wait to have this conversation with her. So please welcome Marsha. Hi.
Hello. Let me live up to that. Thank you.
Well, I'm so grateful you're here and I'm so excited to have you. So let's just go for it, because it seems that we never know where the conversation is going to lead, but it's always going to be good.
It'll be good. I have no doubt it'll be good.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you here is that you're that person that learned how to be a leader, an empathic leader, by having to dig in and do it for yourself. You had to be a leader of one first. Mm-hmm. You had to figure out how to release blame and shame and guilt and all of the nastiness that goes with it. But you did it. You did the hard work. You dug in the dirt. You figured out what you needed to figure out to be able to level up. And I would love to hear a little more about that in your own words.
Thank you for all of that. Honestly, I'm thrilled to be here, Melissa, because I know you and I will have a deep conversation. We always do. And in this space, how did I figure it out? I think I'm going to follow my gut in all of this. I did a lot of therapy, a lot of help, a lot of support. I mean, it sounds like I went through this and I'm now on this side. It was so messy for a number of years that I don't think anything I could describe will do it justice. There are times my husband will say something to me and I'm like, wait, that was our life, wasn't it? Like, it's like you're so detached to how insane those times were. And so as I think back to that, I spent a lot of time hiding, a lot of time being in a space of, shame and judgment and criticism, all the things that you would expect when you're dealing with this kind of story. Lots of opinions, lots of, like I said, criticisms. And unfortunately, until you're in a space that you know who you are, like what you want to do, what your voice is, what your message is, if you're not solid in who you are as a person, then everyone's opinions has something. It has an effect on you. And then on top of that, if it's really shameful things that you're walking through as an experience, then you take it all personally. And so I felt very broken for a long time. I honestly did. I felt very broken. And it wasn't until some key turning points where I had very open conversations with our schools at that time of what we were walking through. I didn't try and hide anything. I was actually trying to have like, how do we navigate this? And during those times, so the school actually a couple times brought us in, my husband and I, in to talk to other parents, which I commend them for so much at that time. They're like, we don't have any training with this. We don't even know what to say or do. Would you mind? And so a couple of those times, I remember sitting there thinking, I feel like this is something. I don't know what yet, but I feel like we're supposed to do something with this. And I kept having this feeling that you're supposed to do something with this message. You're supposed to do something with this message, which is crazy because when you don't want to tell anybody what you're walking through, it feels like, what am I going to start talking about it? And so it started to grow in really small ways. And what I did notice is that every time I spoke or I shared something, it was this feeling of, wait, I'm not the only person and I'm not alone. Like then you start to find your people. And the thing is that your people are never who you think they're going to be. I'm just sharing this for people who are listening. You think it's supposed to be your family, the people closest to you. And I hate to say a lot of times it's not. It really is not. Because we also live in a world, depending where you are age-wise, culture-wise, where we don't share what we're walking through, right? Like yes, you see vulnerable posts online now, but 12 years ago, this was not the case. This was not the case. And the world looked very curated, very, very curated social media wise. And so I was like, I don't even understand why I fit in. Like, I feel like I want to share my story in an online space, but how do I do it and be respectful to my kids and be in this space? Through a lot of work, I started to learn that there were ways to be vulnerable with myself and my story, respect my kids, what they were walking through. And during that time, I actually started to find my people, but I also started to heal in ways that I didn't know I needed. I had no idea that I needed because, we all carry old subconscious stories for all of our life. And for me, I was a fighter. I grew up with a lot of challenges when I was younger. And I was a fighter. I'm like, I push down, armor up. I do it by myself. And that got me through those young years. But when we were dealing with this kind of story, that fighter only isolated me even more. I had to allow others to see me, to get to know me, my story. And I started to really learn like those parts of your story that you think are the most, this isn't my quote, but the most unrelatable parts of your story are actually the most relatable parts of your story for everyone else. Like you think that you're hiding the messy parts, but those are actually the most relatable parts of your story. And I'm not saying that you have to wait till it's completely, like most experts will tell you, wait till it's completely done until there's a scar and you share from the scar, you don't share from the wound. I actually kind of throw all those rules out. I use a different way of analysis with it. I call it in the story and on the story. If you're in the story, I was in the story, but if you're in the story and you can't see it from the lens of like, you're in a blame game situation, you're still in a lot of angry emotions, not the time to share because you're only going to attract more people to you in that way. But when you're on the story, you have perspective, you've got different perspective and you can see things differently. And I was really starting to see that sharing my story, speaking it, writing it was actually helping people. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's the way out. And I was so excited. I was like, okay, I'm going to write the book. And I went to my husband, I'm going to write the book. And he's like, okay, like, are you sure that's a good idea? And I'm like, yes. And he knows. I'm like, yes, it is. And he's like, okay, but just understand, a lot of people are not going to understand this. Like, this is not going to make sense. And be really careful when you have those moments where it's like, I actually have decided, and then people don't back you up because your growth will scare them. Like it scares others. So long story short, those are some of my turning points. And as I started to share a little bit more, I realized that, oh, this story is actually it serves a much bigger purpose. I just started to ask myself, like, what if the worst thing I walked through actually could serve a really good purpose? What would that do? And that's just the lens, right? You take that lens and you just turn it a little bit and you see the situation differently. It didn't change my story. We were still living in it, but it helped me to see the story differently. And when I could see the story differently, I responded differently to my story, which changed my story.
Wow. Yes, there's so much in there. One thing I want to pick up on that, I mean, first of all, thank you for being willing to share all of that with us, because we all go through this stuff in different ways. It's relative, right? I mean, what seems expansive and exhaustive for one person may not seem that way for another, but one way or another, we all get a helping of this.
We do.
To different degrees, but we all get it. So thank you for being willing to be vulnerable, especially since, like you said, in the beginning, people weren't vulnerable about this stuff, and you can't show weakness, or at least you can't overshare. You can't there are all these rules. You can't do this. You can't
Dirty laundry, right? That's dirty laundry. We don't air that. Yeah.
See if your family or the people you're talking about are going to see it, which is another issue. But one thing I really want to pull out of there that I'm hearing as an overarching kind of theme is this strength through vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that you were willing to take that step and be vulnerable, not just to other people, but to your story.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an easy place to be. And when you're just so mangled, and it is, you know, before the scar can really build up, vulnerability is painful. I mean, it's poking an open wound. So of course it's painful, but you did it anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't, again, may not make logical sense. I do remember hearing Brene Brown's, and thank you for mentioning her in that, but I do remember hearing Brene Brown's talk on vulnerability, like at least a decade ago, probably 12, 13 years ago. And the first time I heard it, I remember thinking, that's interesting. Like, that's interesting. That's vulnerability. Okay, well, see, really the number one need of humans is we want to build connection. That really is, like, we want to feel connected, like we belong, like we are part of something. And I won't do her quotes justice, but she always spoke in the sense that, you know, if we want to have courage first so that we can be vulnerable, and it doesn't work that way. Like, we want to have the results without actually being vulnerable. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to embrace vulnerability first, so that leads you to courage, that leads you to connection. So you don't have courage, you don't gain courage just because you want it. You actually have to do an action. Courage is a verb, and that's how I call it. It's a verb. And if you do something that makes you uncomfortable, all of a sudden you now build a little bit of courage that I can do that. And so what started to happen is that when I shared my story from the mom's point of view, I never really shared the details of my kids. I shared what it was like as a parent, because the other piece being that for some reason, moms feel like we sign this unwritten contract that every single thing that happens in our life is our responsibility to fix. I didn't sign it, but I thought that I did. And so then I take all of that on, right? That's my responsibility to fix this. That's a ridiculous amount of pressure to put on, because eventually, and I used to say this, like, our kids hit a point where they have their own brain. Like, I can't control it. I've tried. I can't do it. It's their brain. Yeah. And so it's like, wait a minute, like, I am actually taking 100% responsibility for something I can't even control, like that, like logically breaking it down. So Brene's message on vulnerability, when I really started to see it differently, I was like, okay, so if I can start to share a little bit more of myself in my own way, would that help to build connection? And it didn't happen overnight. And I actually think that most people who have never practiced vulnerability, you will do it wrong in the beginning. And I don't want to say wrong or right, but you will share with the wrong people is what I mean. You will share with the wrong people. And I remember in the beginning going like, okay, I reached out to some friends, my close friends, and I was sharing with them like what was happening. And when you're in this kind of story, I'm watching their reaction, their facial reactions. And I'm like, all right, this isn't normal. Like, I forget that I live it. That's not normal. But it didn't take long before, like, the next day or two, I'm hearing all the details that I've shared out there publicly for everyone. And I'm like, okay, now it's not safe to share, right? It's not safe. And so you're going to do it wrong until you start to understand, like, who do you want to connect with? Who do you want to add into your life? And slowly but surely what happened was vulnerability did bring some of the best connections that I have. And so every time I get scared of sharing or being more of me, I literally stop, and I'm an evidence seeker. I look for evidence in my life. I don't always paint worst case scenario. Hear me kill it. I correct my language often. I look for the evidence of where have I done it in the past and what happened. And I can tell you now that everyone who is in my life, literally everyone, almost every single one of them, they weren't here a decade ago. They weren't even in my life then. The people who were in my life then, they're gone, and they're gone. And I mean, completely burned down, gone. And so it's a reminder that you're going to go through these changes and growth, but vulnerability will allow you to connect with the people that you're meant to connect with. and allowing yourself to be seen. And that can just be, it doesn't mean you have to open up your entire like life to the world, but can you find a way to just stretch vulnerability a little bit? Because if I can also share one quick thing from an NLP perspective,
Yeah.
our subconscious mind, its number one's job is to keep us safe. It's his number one job above everything else is to keep us safe. And that our subconscious mind runs 95% of our programming. It's our hard drive of our body. It runs everything, thoughts, beliefs, decisions, choices, everything. So if you're like, okay, well, Marsha said to practice vulnerability, I'm going to go online. I'm going to share everything about my story. Your subconscious mind will freak out because it's like, that's not safe. We can't do that. So you don't have to tackle it all at once. It's taken a long time to get to here. But what is like one thing you can do a little bit more? What's one thing you can stretch yourself in doing? So that's how I decided. I mean, I, by mistake or not mistake, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, I really wanted to start to share in the online space, but everything was very curated at that time. And I thought, I can't like just come up and be all perfectly done to do a Facebook Live when my life is a gong show. Like that doesn't even make sense. So I didn't have a strategy behind it, but I decided to start doing lives after hot yoga when I was physically a mess. And because that felt safe for me to show up that way. I would love to say I had logically and strategically figured that out. I had not, but it just felt safe. And this was real and this was me. And at that time, everything in the world was very perfectly curated. And here I am saying, yeah, life isn't easy, but I'm doing this for me today. I'm trying to lead myself this way. And I made it about that. So it's finding your way for vulnerability. Sorry, that was a long answer, but finding your way to work through vulnerability.
No, that's a perfect answer. I mean, that's because, well, number one, I agree with everything you said. So there it is. But I mean, we don't talk about this. Even though things have changed societally a lot in the last 10, 12 years, we still aren't overly accepting of things like vulnerability. We play at vulnerability. We do things that kind of mimic vulnerability, but it's not real, authentic openness and connection. And I think that's where we make the mistake, which is why we're having trouble like the loneliness epidemic that's happening right now. You know, with people mistaking online friends and social media for real connection, for you know, the problems that the younger generations are having with isolation and loneliness.
It is scary. It is like, it really is. Like social media can be a beautiful tool. It has brought me some of the best people in my life. Honestly, that's how I look at it. But I also know that for some it's not. And so it's like, how can you find your way in? Like your algorithm is showing you what you're looking for, right? So if it's all doom scroll, it's responding to you. It is I say that with so much love, but it is responding to you. And so social media can be that, but it really is like finding your path. Sometimes you can find groups and Facebook groups and people, and just kind of toe dipping into what would that feel like to feel safe to do it. I can just share that I have evidence that, you know, I saw people say today, like, how lucky are you that you have so many people in your life that support you? I'm like, I am. And I created it. Like I am. And I didn't have that. We didn't have that. So it is possible. And it's not because people connect. You don't need the details of the story. I think this is a really important piece on connection and vulnerability. You actually don't need the details of the story. It's like how the emotions, the experiences that you walk through. So when people say to me, where do I even start? First question I always ask is like, what is one thing you wished you could be more open about your journey with others? And start there, because it's about asking yourself questions. It's not about somebody else giving you the answer. It's got to feel safe within you to stretch and do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I like how you bring it back to yourself. What feels safe for me? Where's the place I want to be? What is the place I want to interconnect from? You know, who am I first? And then we can start with the interconnection. Because if you don't know yourself, I talk about, you know, the empathy and self-empathy, and how if you cannot show empathy for yourself, how do you expect to show it for anybody else?
You cannot give what you do not have.
No.
You cannot give what you do not have. And that quote used to make me so angry, because it was like, if you want to build more friendship, you have to build that within yourself. If you want more kindness, you have to build it within yourself. And I was like, that is just BS. How am I going to, and I didn't understand it, but I often think now, like when I'm like, I wish I had that. I'm like, wait, am I giving that to myself? I'm like, oh crap, I'm not. I can see it now. So I love how you're referring to that piece on leadership. I think that our job, honestly, is to lead ourselves every single day. I really do. Amidst all the challenges, doesn't mean that every day is like knocking out of the park. It's not. But it really is about leading ourselves.
Yes, and I agree. And I mean, it's funny because you'll talk to these people in leadership positions, whatever that is, and usually in my experience, they mean well. Usually they want to do well by other people. They want to lead well. They want to be that, strong commander or whatever, but they don't have the relationship with themselves to be able to have a foundation to do that. And that self-reflection and self-awareness is the first piece. And the other thing that people are usually surprised about is that it's not a one and done thing. It's not like you can do it and say, oh, I checked it off my list. Now I got it now. It is every day for the rest of your life. It is a practice, not a performance.
It's a practice, not a performance. That's fantastic. It is. It is definitely something every single day. And that might just mean that, like, there are times where I'm going to an event in a room and I'm like, I'm uncomfortable to go in here. And I'm like, okay, where is there evidence that I have done this before and it has helped me to build connections? Okay, I've got lots of evidence. Like, your training, if we could think of our eyes as a movie camera. I use this with clients all the time. Like, where's your camera pointed? Is it pointing to like the worst case scenario of all the things that could go wrong? Because if that's what your internal language and energy is, that's what you will see. Your subconscious mind is responding to you. It's like literally going, oh, you want more of that? Okay, here, just a second. Let me pull up all the other examples when things didn't work out. And I become the detective, like the ninja detective. And I'm like, where's our evidence that I did that? And it turned out great. Okay, I found that. Yep, I've done that. I've been here before. I'm good. Like, it's a reminder.
Yeah, it is. And you do have to, it's a constant script. Or at least for me it is. Maybe somebody's got it figured out. I don't have to figure it out.
No, my clients say that to me all the time. They're like, how often do you do this work? And I'm like, seriously? Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Just so you know, every day. I mean, if you really understand thoughts, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80 to 90% we repeat every single day, and 90% of those are negative. That's before the world gets us. That's before social media gets us. That's where challenges get us. We are like a repeat Groundhog Day loop of negative thoughts and emotions. Yes. So to do the work and reprogram your subconscious mind for something different than what you have now, you have to override what your thought pattern is actually doing. So is it work? 100% it's work. And it's work to do nothing too. That's a choice.
Yes. Either way, I mean, if you do what you've always done, you're going to have what you've always had.
Always, 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 always.
So yeah, the other thing we were talking about, which of course we were talking about before the show. So, sorry, everybody, we're going to bring you in on it now. We were talking about how some of these patterns are ingrained very, very early, and we don't even realize it. I think it's like how most of them are ingrained before the age of 7. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, these things that we've done for, decades, sometimes more decades than we care to admit, are very ingrained, and it feels natural because it's like it's safe. The monster is better than the monster you don't know. Mm-hmm. But yet it is possible to get out of these thought loops and some of the stuff that we do to bring in these negative thoughts that go back a long, long, long way. Sometimes we don't stop to think about just how far back they go. So we can't pull the weeds out by the roots because the roots go so deep. And I wondered what you might want to say about that, because it's a problem for all of us. We all have stuff that happened in childhood, even if we don't remember, even if we don't think about it, and we deal with the repercussions in our thoughts and in our patterns and in our actions for the rest of our lives. So, I mean, especially as an NLP coach, I'd love to get your view on this.
Oh, I love this stuff. Honestly, I just geek out on it. It's the work that I wish I would have had years ago, but it came when I was ready for it. So we do have, whether it is big T, little t traumas, it's not even just that, it's our perception of what was said or done. So a situation that can be quite minor, our subconscious mind is like, oh, that's what that means. And it attaches meaning, because our subconscious mind is a meaning-making machine. It's looking for meaning and it's creating meaning is what it does. And then when it perceives a threat, it's like, oh, we don't go that way. Like, we don't go that way. That's not safe. And so it really is this piece of it. So our subconscious mind remembers everything, like every single thing in detail. And I'm not going to do these numbers justice right now, but I think we receive like 11 billion bytes of information every, 2.3 million bytes of information every single second. Of that, we are retaining like 0.006%. So it's actually like, it's so small. That means, and why is that? It's because our conscious mind is taking it all in through all of our senses, and our subconscious, and it literally, it's going to explode. So the conscious mind's like, that's just too much. I have to delete, distort, and generalize all that information, and then we store it. And so what happens is, from a young age, something has happened. We have applied a meaning to it, and all of a sudden we've decided that it is not safe to go that way. And so as we get older, we don't even realize that those stories are on repeat. We don't know whose they are. We don't know where they've come from. We don't even realize the meaning that we've attached to them. And so it requires working with somebody who can help you to do some subconscious release and work to be able to look at it and go, okay, where are the root of those emotions? What are those beliefs that we've done? Because you can consciously ask yourself, like, where did that come from? You won't know. You will actually won't know, because you can't see it. And so this is the work of being able to get to the subconscious root of it. And when you do that, you can look at that scenario and actually attach a different meaning to it. And a different meaning in a sense that it's like, wow, okay, well, that's how I understood that. And because of that, that actually is, no wonder I led myself the way that I did. No wonder I was such a fighter with I will do it on my own and isolating and all these things, because that was what I was rewarded for as a kid. I was rewarded for being the one that no one ever had to think about, no one ever had to worry about, because she just gets it done on her own. And that means that, when you're rewarded for that in a young age, and then you're avoiding chaos at the same time, the message over and over is like, okay, I don't ask for help because that's weak. We don't show emotions because that's weak. We just put our armor on and we just push and do it on our own. So those become strengths as we're kids, right? And they become strengths all along. And we just keep doing the same thing because we're 95% repeat patterns over and over. But then I really do believe there comes a point in our life where our strengths become our weakness. I really do. I think there hits a point where it's like, wow, that really served me, but that is not serving me now. The armor and blocking everyone out and trying to be perfect when we were walking through absolute chaos was the last thing I needed to do. But that's what served me. And so we actually have to do some subconscious work to release those old stories, see the meaning and what they taught us, and then actually be able to speak life into where we're going instead. Because this is why, without addressing the subconscious belief, you can't change it. So that's why a lot of people will not have success, in the sense that they will ask, I actually just got asked this question at an event, what affirmation do I say to change this? I'm like, well, what one speaks to you? Because you need to do something that is going to be the opposite of what that limiting belief was. So if you say, I am worthy, there's no emotion attached to that. That does not evoke anything. And so it will have no bearing on your old story. So it really, you have to go back to the root of that story to change it in order to speak life into what you do want instead. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the stuff that's built when we're children is emotion-based. The things that we did, we don't have the capacity to logic through things at that age. So if it's rooted in emotion, the only way you're going to change it is through emotion.
Your analytical mind is not even like, I think it's like 12 years old. And I think then like your analytical mind, 11 to 12, and your conscious mind, like by 13. And so all that work when you're younger is all your subconscious mind being formed. You can't logically make sense of it. And when you do get to the root of it, if you say your belief, your limiting belief out loud, most people in your life will be like, that's ridiculous, because it doesn't make logical sense. Right? It's like, it doesn't. And then you're like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. Now it's like shameful. I feel stupid. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it. And so it really is a loop that happens. It doesn't have to make logical sense. In fact, it probably won't at all.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And this is precisely why you almost have to have outside people mm-hmm. that you trust, that are trustworthy, mm-hmm. to be able to look and say, have you noticed this? Have you thought about this? Have you considered this? Now, they need to be the right people, exactly like you said. Unfortunately, sometimes the people we think we can depend on or that we think we can be vulnerable with, we probably shouldn't be. So mm-hmm. it takes having the right people in your life, but having those people are invaluable. Mm-hmm. It's that was it the thing with the pickle jar, right? If you're on the inside of the pickle jar, you can't read the label from the outside.
Yes, you cannot read it from the outside. From the inside, you cannot read it. And I love that. Like, I love that analogy. Yeah, it definitely is work, but it's worth it. Like, it really is worth it, because who you become in the process is so huge. Now, I also think that I don't know who said this quote, one of my favorite quotes, like, you cannot love who you are and hate everything that made you who you are. So if you're holding a lot of resentment to all the things that you walk through and you experience, and a lot of anger and this almost separation of it, good luck actually loving who you are right now, because it's not. So forgiveness actually was a really, really big thing in my life that I had to embrace. And I share this because, like, I look at the work that I do now, and I'm sure there's a younger version of me who's going like, thank God she's finally doing that. And she's doing what? Like, it's so different, right? So different. But the forgiveness piece was huge. It felt really soft. And I thought, I don't need to do this. But I actually was able to release a lot of emotions that I didn't realize I was holding on to. I had a lot of like feelings of, I failed as a parent. I failed as a mother, because if I did it right, we shouldn't have dealt with this. This should not be what the story is, right? And I mean, I had people asking me like, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? Well, if you could go back and change it, what's something that you would change? And I even got to the point of recognizing that I could go back and change every single thing I did, and we still might have the same situation, because it involved things outside of my control. And that's like really coming down to those pieces of it, is recognizing like, what can you control in that? So, I mean, you might be, again, when I said in the beginning, asking yourself, like, what is something that you wish you could be more vulnerable about? Then the other thing I would ask is like, what is something that you feel yourself resisting a lot? Because if you're resisting, or if you're falling into like those emotions, the shame and the judgment and the criticism and the self, like, that's a sign. That's a sign that there's something there to work through. You don't even have to work through it publicly, but to work through, right? And this is why, like, this is no dig on therapy, because I did a lot of therapy. But there comes a point where even talk therapy is not going to take you where you need to go, because that's all conscious thinking. You're still not changing the root of what those old beliefs are. And in that space, that's where it's like, this was the work I was missing, and I didn't understand what was happening there. So just to share that in a sense, like, if you address what is it that you feel you need to do, like maybe you're being invited to do more of. Forgiveness is, whenever that word shows up for me, I'm like, oh, it's time to pause. It's time to pause. There's something I need to work through here, because I for sure can be my own biggest critic. Easy, hands down.
Yes. Yes. You have given us such amazing tools today. I hope anybody who's listening, pick them all up, pick one up, try it. But the point is that until you can change your mind and change your life, you're not going to be able to change the world or change others' lives, or at least not in the way you might want to. It has to start at home. Charity starts at home. And that's it.
You speak so much about that, and I love it in a sense, like as you talk about, like I think that's where we had a very great connection, common ground, is like self-leadership is literally like self-leadership is everything. And it's a brand new conversation every day. I can lead myself so great today. Like I could like do everything I need to do. And tomorrow we start from scratch again. It doesn't carry over. Sorry, it doesn't carry over.
It doesn't. And it really is. I mean, you don't have to love everything about it and some of the hurt that comes out of it, but you better embrace the practice because it's your new best friend.
I agree.
I have one more question for you because this has been fantastic. I'm sure my audience has gotten a bunch of great stuff out of this today. So here it is. If you can think of one person, alive or dead, known or unknown, that you feel has really made an impact on you, how you approach self-leadership, and how you are crafting your life from this day forward, who would it be and why?
I feel so in a space, like I feel like I'd love to have a conversation with Brene Brown. I really do. I feel like I would love to have a conversation with Brene Brown. There's a lot of people in my life that I don't know that I would love to have a conversation with. The other one for me, and you're gonna laugh, your listeners are gonna laugh, J.K. Rowling. I like that when she wrote all the Harry Potter series. She was turned down, I think it was 12 or 15 times. And she kept, like, she had this vision of what she wanted to do. She was laughed at. She was ridiculed. She kept going. She kept going. She kept going. And it wasn't until I believe one of the, either a secretary or an assistant pulled her manuscript out of the garbage, read it, loved it, went to her boss and said, you have to do something with this. And he followed through. And I mean, that was how many years ago? That person still works with J.K. Rowling now. Like she hired her. And so she's her. So it's just, the reason is that I say that I really love the stories of people who defied odds. They defied odds. That's what I get to have conversation into my podcast. The stories that we share is like people who overcame something that was not expected, that was not ever like believed that they could, because those stories give others so much more hope as to what's possible.
Yeah. Steel is tempered by fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always comfortable, but you can't make steel without fire.
No, it's so true. And so, if you're in a spot listening to this and you are in a low spot, you're in a low moment, I promise, like, there is someone somewhere who has experienced what you are experiencing. And if you can start to look and find some of those stories, they will give you hope. And for me personally, there came a point, if I could share, when I knew it wasn't going to be me that was going to create any change with my kids. It wasn't going to be me because I'd done everything I could think of doing. I remember thinking, I really hope that someone's story crosses their path of like overcoming this, whether it's addiction, mental health. I really wanted that to happen. And I thought that's what the change will be. And then as we tie it back to what you said earlier, I have to be the person that does that first. And so if I'm here waiting for others to show up and share their story that might help my kids, I was like, why am I not doing it? I actually have to do that too. And so the messages are always there of how we can lead ourselves a little bit more. And it's been one of the best gifts for me, to be honest. I've had some incredible conversations with people who overcame odds and stories that never would you have ever expected that they could. So there's always evidence out there. You just have to train your brain to look for it.
Marsha, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and I can't tell you how grateful I am that you're here and for spending time with us and sharing your wisdom and your experience. And to my audience, please check out her book, When She Stopped Asking Why. Check out her podcast. Follow Marsha. She's speaking. She's out. She's around. We are going to put her information in the show notes. So, reach out. And just thank you so much for being here today and doing this with us.
So grateful. Thank you for having me.